Hello and good morning. Welcome to the Going Executive Director Show. My name is Brandy and this is Jeff. And our purpose is to bring you the vision, skills, techniques, inspiration, and motivation in your daily activities needed for you to build a solid, profitable business. And this is actually our team training here. So we will be talking about specifics here. We're going to mention the company that we're in. So if you guys are waiting for the generic show, that starts at noon. And here this is specifically about the company that we are in. So with that, we have been going over the 10 core. And Jeff, would you like to take over?
Sure. So the 10 core, number one, getting started right. Number two, be here a year from now. Jerry's here. What's up, sir? What we're actually doing today, Johnette, hello. We got our luncheon here in just a few. And I do have a meeting set up there with a really cool person that I haven't seen in quite some time that I used to work with. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. But the second core is be here a year from now. The third core is actually personal development or professional development. And just to kind of give you guys some background, it says right now that about 70% of people who are working a job do not actually like the people they work with or the job that they have. They're very unsatisfied. It also says that they're very unsatisfied in life. So if you're unsatisfied in life, basically your home life, the relationships you have at home, friends, family, etc., and you're unhappy basically at work, that basically is going to lead to what? It's going to lead to a very, very negative environment. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing right now. Moose is here. What's up, sir? It's something that really needs to be worked on. And personal development is going to help basically with any area that you have. The problem is most people read what they like, not what they need to read. And what I mean by that is you might find a specific person, specific author, and it may be what you like because it goes with your personality, but may not be what you need because what you need is probably what you're dealing with, what you're trying to avoid. Now I'm trying to pick on you. It's just personally what I did for years. I thought, I know this stuff. I know how to talk. But what I needed was the skills to be able to deal with all the people that I was dealing with. Shamala's here. Hello. So that was a real transition for me, being able to learn those things and being able to figure out like the personalities, being able to figure out how to talk to people. Not talk at them, but talk with them and actually communicate with them, because everybody has like a different way of doing things. Everybody has a different way of seeing things, and what their motivation is, what they actually want to get done. I kind of tried to force it based on what I wanted, based on my personality, and my personality makes up a little itty bitty segment of the population. Where what I didn't realize is the bigger part of the population is the segment that I didn't relate to, more of the S-type personality. And for a long time, that personality, when I ran into it, I would just avoid. Simply because the speed at which they did things, the speed at which they moved, I couldn't relate to, and I couldn't have the conversation with, because as they would go through their pattern of how they make decisions and how they decided, I would get frustrated, I would get angry, and I would just want to move on instantly. John's with us. What's up? So, personal development is so important because what it does is it gives you the ability to bridge a gap of what? The gap of personality, the gap of age, the gap of background. You start learning that more and more people are alike, not necessarily so different. Yes, we do things in different ways, but in the end, we all need and want similar things. Everybody wants a house, everybody wants a different house. Everybody wants to travel, everybody wants to go to a different place. Everybody wants, to have a great family. It's just how you go about doing it is different based on your personality. Jerry's with us from Colorado. What's happening, sir? So this is part of what I had to learn the hard way, is going personal development, figuring some of this out. It was not easy. It was not easy growing up. Not being able to relate to everybody. It was not easy growing up, not being able to connect with people and not understanding why I would get so upset and why they didn't understand and relate and I didn't understand and relate. So this actually started in my family, like early on. I had issues and problems with everybody. And then I went to school and I had issues and problems with everybody. Then I had friends and I had issues and problems. So basically what I did is I just kept pulling back until I was completely by myself most of the time. Part of which because I was grounded growing up and unable to make relationships and figure things out, but also because I was never given any of the tools or skills to be able to deal with any of it. The counselor that we did go to just kept repeating that I had a bad attitude. I was like, well, if it doesn't work, I'll just do what I want. I mean, that was my philosophy. Not necessarily a good philosophy. We go into, and I'm just going to pull this up here real quick, kind of a way to look at things from the standpoint of, what is your philosophy? Is it a glass half full, glass half empty sort of philosophy? A lot of people have kind of a weird way of looking at things. I was definitely one of those. And it really boils down to what you start out with is, where is your programming coming from? Is your programming coming from an entrepreneur set? Are you going to have a harder time because, maybe you were programmed as, maybe the people around you were unemployed growing up. If the people around you were unemployed growing up, it's probably going to be a lot harder for you to understand business because you didn't see any of the skill set that was needed to take off. What if your family had a job mentality, where it was just a job, and that was the programming? And I would say the majority of the programming that we're getting now from television, from school systems, from people around you, is really the job mentality. It's not even the career mentality, which is kind of a higher level. So it starts as unemployed, doing nothing, possibly having to live off the system, possibly just, getting by, possibly taking what you need, to the job mentality. And that may be the program you have. I think that's much more the program that's being taught right now. Well, you just need to get a job. You need to get a good job. And we need to demand things. We need to demand more money. Not provide more service, but demand more money. Because, money's fake anyway, and we should just be able to print it, which is kind of true. Job mentality. Then it goes to the career mentality. The career mentality, I would say, would be, 50 years ago, that's what you typically heard. You typically heard 50 years ago, hey, you need a career, you need something long-term. Not so much a day-to-day, right now, hey, let's go get her done, which is more of what you'll hear from, I think, more and more people today is, you just need a good job. Well, a good job is not a career, unfortunately. The career mentality is more like, what am I going to be doing 10, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? I see that it was taught a lot more years and years and years ago, and you can see it in music, you can see it in television, you can see it in movies, that was the philosophy that was taught over 50 years ago. And 50 years ago, what we're talking about is, the 60s leading into the 70s. Somewhere around 2000, maybe even mid-2000, it just became, okay, just go get a job, just go get anything, From the career mentality, you go to the self-employed. Some people like do it yourself. If you want success, you've got to go out and do it yourself. And then finally, you have the entrepreneur programming. Based on what programming you have, you're going to have a harder time. How do you start figuring out about this program stuff? Well, there's a lot of really good books, but I would probably suggest more than any Robert Kiyosaki. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, The Unfair Advantage are two of probably the best books out there. I would say Rich Dad, Poor Dad's kind of like the foundation, but The Unfair Advantage is probably one of the better ones out there. Then it comes down to your philosophy. We talked about this a little while ago, the unlimited, glass half full, glass half empty. A great person to listen to that I feel that's in the industry that you'd be able to get a ton out of is going to be Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn has more to say on this subject than anybody I know, that just kind of gets you to look at life a little bit differently. Eric Thomas is another guy. Depending on who you want to follow and how you want to listen. You also have people like Dan Piena. You also have people, when talking about just philosophy of life, a little strong, but good. Who else? Eric Thomas. Gary Vaynerchuk is another guy in the industry, but again, some of these people you have to, come with a warning. Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins actually learned a little bit from Jim Rohn and a little bit from everybody else. He really never references exactly who he learned everything from, but it's really good. So you have your programming, who programmed you, and if you think about this, when I sit down and I ask people who their parents were and where they went to school and who their friends were, I start gathering the information here on where they were programmed, who they were programmed by, what kind of blocks they're going to have, what kind of information they're going to start with, and then how they're going to see the world. Then the next is the philosophy. Is the glass half full, half empty? What were their parents' life? The Business of the 21st Century is good, but that more says, hey, go build a network marketing business. That book was actually physically written to convince people to get into network marketing and direct sales. So I don't necessarily think that's the best one overall to learn about programming. But it's good. I would say it's good. Philosophy, Unlimited, a glass half full or limited, a glass half empty. Then you come down to your identity, success versus unsuccessful. This is where it dives a little bit deeper into psychology. So if I'm working personal development with somebody and I realize they're identifying themselves as a truck driver, if I realize they're identifying themselves as a Marine, if I realize Nathan Williams is with us, what's up, sir? If I realize they're identifying themselves as a postal worker or as a bus driver or whatever, I want to try to get them to identify a little bit differently that they can be a business person. And that may take, a Tony Robbins to be able to shift your mindset over and see something completely different. And I'm just talking about people that I know. Then you're thinking, long-term thinking versus short-term thinking. Also, identity. Another great guy is, John Maxwell. John Maxwell, in his book, not only Developing the Leader Within You, but I think Failing Forward talks a lot about your identity and who you are and being able to step out of, one career into another. Intentional living is amazing for being able to identify that. And then you're thinking, it comes down to long-term versus short-term. Long-term, what you're going to work on consistently. Hey, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to figure it out. It's going to take a while. I'm not going to get it all in a day. And John Maxwell, again, is a really good guy when it comes to thinking. He actually wrote a book about thinking. I thought that was pretty good. How he decides, how he thinks through things. It's called Thinking for a Change. And then you have short-term thinking. And you can always tell when you're around somebody that has short-term thinking, because how they talk is they're going to say, hey, I'm just going to try it. I'm trying to get by right now. I'm just wasting time. I'm just doing nothing. I'm sitting at home doing nothing. I'm killing time. I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to. There's all these words that associate them with what they're doing. And then you have the attitude. Your attitude is either positive or negative. It's a feeling you grew up with. And typically you're either going to grow up in a family that their imagination is worrisome, their imagination is fearful, and they're going to tell you about all their fears. They're going to tell you about all the damaging things that happen to them. And that's how they see life. And then you can also have the positive side of things. The positive side of things is I can do it. You're self-reliant. If somebody's done it before, I can do it. If it's possible to do, I can do it. If I can think about it, I can do it. And then the negative is I can't do it because, and then you have the blames list, There's a lot of books on attitude, but one of the best guys I know about attitude is Zig Ziglar. Anything by Zig Ziglar is amazing, something to work on. Then you lead into your actions. Your actions come down to, are you dream driven? Are you goal driven? Are you activity driven? Is what you're doing, your activities tracked? Is mentorship and coaching needed? Is accountability needed? Yes. So one of the best books I found for physical actions, and to understand how our actions add up, is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It talks about the little things we do every day, how they basically add up. And then you also have, kind of the other side of actions. You have the reaction. You have the active, and then you have the reactive. You have the planned, and then you have the reactive, circumstance-driven, random, unplanned life. So actions, I would go with Darren Hardy. Habits, forming habits. Planned, focused, disciplined, consistent, tracked habits. Again, action and habits, I would also go to Tony Robbins, because Tony basically has a program called RPM, results-oriented, massive action, purpose-driven. Hey, let's get done what you need to get done. There's a lot of stuff that we do that doesn't necessarily need to happen, but we're doing it just to do it. He narrows it down to what is the absolute activity to do, and how do we do it consistently, and how do we do it where we actually make ourselves happy. Then you have the results themselves, predictable, planned, tracked, random. Predictable, planned, and tracked is how you want to do things. Those are the results you want. You want to know where you're going, and you want to know you're going to get there. The results, when it comes to, unsuccessful people, they're usually random, they're usually unexplained, they're usually unplanned, and they're usually circumstantial. If they do have a result, they don't know how they got it, and they're like, yes, I was lucky this time, and they don't realize that there was probably a pattern behind it. And then you have your lifestyle, dream-driven, goal-focused, activity-tracked. Again, Tony Robbins really lays out, he's like, you want this life out here, here's how to go get it, here's what to say, here's what to do. And there's a bunch of people in the industry, I'm just naming off people that I've read, people that I know, people I can relate to. Lifestyle, Grant Cardone talks about this, about the activity and the actions and the work ethic. Kyle's with us. What's up, sir? Again, your lifestyle can either be, dream driven, or it can be random. It can be goal focused, or it can be completely unplanned. It can be activity tracked, or it can be unexplainable. Most of the time, people who end up with a lifestyle that, is better than others, will say, oh, I just got lucky. They really don't know how they got there. They were around some of the right people, and some people actually don't know. They were around the right people, did the right things, and because they were around the right people, did the right things with the right philosophies, it worked out for them. And then last, you talk about legacy. And I think John Maxwell is probably one of the better people about legacy. I think Tony Robbins also talks a lot about this. He says, okay, you're talented in what you do. You're able to do what you're able to do. You're able to produce these results, but in the end, what are you really going for? What do you want to be known for? Like, I don't want you to work at this so hard, get to 10 million, get to $20 million. And he was talking to this one particular lady this one time. He goes, I don't want you to get to $20 million to be able to give all this time and basically wear yourself out and then look back and go, was it worth it? He goes, what are you really trying to get to? And it was a really cool, interesting way to look at life, is life just isn't about accomplishing and a high level. He goes, you're gonna do well in anything because you're driven, because you have this discipline, because you're personable, because you're likable. But in the end, the legacy card, when we pull out the legacy card, what do we want to be known for? And legacy, you're either a great example to follow, somebody to talk about, somebody to say, hey, this was a person that did the right things with the right people, this is a person that accomplished, or you're a warning or lesson of what not to do. That's how people usually remember people, one of those two ways. The third, which would be worse, is just forgotten. You have forgotten people, you have warnings and lessons of what not to do, and then you have great examples to follow. And I think John Maxwell talks a lot about this in his book, Intentional Living, is how do you want to be remembered? What do you want to do now? To be purpose-driven. The Purpose-Driven Life is another really good book. Rick Warren goes into a lot of this. So these are just a couple things. Now, if you're just looking for the skill set alone, when it comes to personal development, the skill set alone of building a business, look to the best in the industry. They've written books. Look to the best in the industry, meaning there's the Eric Worre's, there's the Brian Carruthers has written a couple books. There's the Brig Hart has written a couple books specifically about building. Jim Rohn has written a couple books specifically about building. Jesse Garcia's here. What's up? So this is just kind of my personal development library as we go through these 10 things, these 10 mindset things to figure things out. Again, your programming, where it all starts. What kind of things do you need to reprogram to be able to understand entrepreneurship rather than just understanding working for somebody? Robert Kiyosaki really lays that out. Your philosophy, glass half empty or half full. Your identity, is it successful or unsuccessful? Your thinking, is it long-term thinking? Is it success thinking, or is it short-term thinking right now? No absolute gratification, no delayed gratification, no work put in up front. Your attitude, is it either positive or negative? Are you somebody that people want to be around because you're always accomplishing stuff and getting stuff done? Are you the negative person that you're always telling people how it's not going to work and why it's not going to work? Are you action-driven, dream-driven? Are you goal-focused? Are you activity-tracked? Is your activity tracked? Do you have mentorship? Do you have coaching? Do you have accountability? Or are you just running it, solo by yourself? Is it reactive? Is that how your actions are? Are they reactive? Are they circumstance-driven? Are they random, unplanned? Your habits, are they planned out? Are they focused? Are they disciplined? Or are they reactive? What are your habits like? Are they good habits or bad habits? Results, are you getting the results you want? Are they predictable? Are they planned? Are they tracked? Are they just, unexplainable and unplanned and you have no idea how you get them? Your lifestyle, Is it starting to become what you want it to be? Is it starting to become what you've dreamed about? Or is it what you don't want? You know, your lifestyle is Groundhog's Day, get up, do the same thing every day, and you don't even like doing any of it. And then last is your legacy. You're either a great example to follow, you're a warning or lesson of what not to do, or you simply disappear and are never talked or, thought about again because you made no impact. You didn't make a positive impact or no impact. You're one of those people that's trying to sit in the background and make not have any interaction with people, which isn't good either. So Jim Rohn says, if you want to change this, if you want to change your programming, if you want to change your philosophy, if you want to change your lifestyle and your results at the end, if you want to change your legacy in the end, you have to start with the programming. So you have to start with the programming. So what you listen to, what you read, what you watch, and who you hang out with. So I'm going to give you Darren Hardy's kind of overview, and then we got to run because we've got a couple things to do today. Darren Hardy said, if you want to get good in any area, number one, you'll buy 5 books. 5 books of the best people in that area. You'll buy 5 books from 5 different people, and you'll read those 5 books. The second thing you'll do is you'll get 3 audio programs. You'll get 3 audio programs specific to what you're working on, what you're doing. And then last, you'll go to one seminar. You go to one seminar specifically, or one convention is what he calls it, one convention specific to that area that you're trying to master or learn about. He goes, it's 5 books, it's 3 audio programs, and he goes, it's pretty simple math. He goes, what you want to do is you want to read about 10 to 15 pages out of each one of those books a day. Not each one like daily, but pick one, read 10 to 15 pages. He goes, you're going to want to listen to 30 minutes to an hour of an audio a day, and then you're going to want to attend those seminars. He goes, with that pattern, with that blueprint, you're going to be able to get through that stuff in 90 days to 6 months. Get through all the material, go to the convention. He goes, if you remember these numbers, if you read 3 books in any area, you're 80% smarter than the general public on that subject. If you read 3 books. If you read 5 books, think about it. I mean, if you're 80% smarter here, if you read 5 books, you're probably 90% smarter than the average person is on that subject. If you've read a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen books on any one subject, you're probably smarter than 95% of the people out there on that subject. So therefore, you're able and should be teaching at that level. You have the ability to teach others about that level if you've read that much. Jim's with us. What's up? Benny just jumped on. Jesse, what's going on? Henry jumped on. So real quick, guys, that's what I have for today. It's about personal development. Those are just some ideas, books, people that, Brandy and I have, read and watched. And, I'm currently going through this one again, 10X. Taking the notes so that way I can teach that on another call at some point. So I appreciate everybody for jumping on. And next, the MLM Millionaire Show, Lunchtime Leadership Show. Thanks, guys. Talk to you real soon.